Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Carl and Rick Talk Risk.
Hello, everyone, and apologies in advance for my raspy voice. I got a bit of a winter bug, so bear with me as I rasp my way through this.
Get better soon, Rick. And yeah, I've got curtains shut in February because the Netherlands decided it's time for spring after sub-zero temperatures last week. Not complaining, just it's very bright. Um, Rick, we did our usual sent articles back and forth, and we came across something I think that'll be interesting to everybody. Kind of ties into a lot of themes that we talk about on this podcast, and it is the AI doomsday scenario that rocked the markets. I think that's fair. I think it was 2 weeks ago now. It was on a Monday. It's the day the market crashed a bit, and it's funny because I read about it myself. Can't remember where. If I find it, I'll put it in the notes. I'll put your article from the Guardian in the notes as well. So when I saw the article you sent me, I knew what it was about, but it was a completely different take on it. In my article, and this is yeah, in my article it said, well, this is a very reputed source. This person correctly guessed that Ozempic was going to take off early on, made a call, told people to invest in it, and that's why they became a trusted name. And in your article, completely different take. This is a unknown blog in their mother's basement. No, I'm exaggerating for effect, but it was a bit of a different. Uh, the author had a different take on the credibility of the source, because what happened is the person I, I, I'm not quite sure what they are, but they have a blog, and maybe a podcast as well, and they laid out a doomsday scenario for AI where it could really bring down certain companies, certain sectors of the economy, and people responded and started selling, especially software stocks, Monday.com and some of the stocks that were named in there. But I want to I want to
You
ask
might
the
want to
question.
mention the name. It's the Citrini Research.
Yes,
I have to admit, I had to look it up, so that's why I was, away from my screen there for a second. It's the
thank you.
Citrini Research report on AI.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. What? Why do you think it got so much traction? Why do people listen to this?
Um, why do the Kardashians get so much attention? Uh, why did Liberace, dating myself, get so much attention? Some things are famous simply for the sake of being famous. So the reason I originally sent the article to you, and I realize that you want to probably take a different spin on this, is my sending it to you was this is nuts. It's nuts that this article, which is just one of thousands that are saying basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's thousands of articles saying AI is going to save us. There's thousands of articles saying that AI is, going to doom us. And they're more or less saying all the same things. There's nothing in this report, and I went back and read the original report, that hasn't been said hundreds, if not thousands of times before, perhaps even more better and higher level of thought, lower level of thought. And for whatever reason, this is the one that struck. And
Yeah.
what struck me was, why this? And of course, people who know me realize that the answer I'm going to give is complexity theory, baby. But this is truly something that struck complexity gold. It's the same thing. Why is BTS, you know, uh, Taylor Swift, name whatever viral star that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they become famous? Last week, I have to admit, I was a little ill last week. And so I watched some retro TV. I watched Jersey Shore for the first time simply so I could try to understand what my daughters were so excited about. And I was horrified. I mean, I needed like a brain infusion. It's like someone, after watching a single episode, was like someone took half my brain out. You could literally feel your brain getting smaller watching it. Why is that show hit, or at least in North America? It has got to be. I understand, dumb. I understand wanting brain dead TV. This is beyond brain dead.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, I'm certainly not saying that this article was brain dead. Far from it. It was well written, well thought out. But was it really original? And so my question is why did this go viral?
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't read it. But I still, I have a bit of a guess, and maybe since you read it, you can blow up my theory. From what I understand, it's very specific about certain companies, a certain way that it could roll out. It told a really good story. And I was thinking about, we often talk about storytelling for risk managers and how we need to get better at it. And it's part of a gap in our communication where we expect people to follow our policies and our guidelines, but we don't put ourselves in their shoes, tell a good story, explain impacts, really flesh it out. And from what I understand, this memo, this scenario was really specific, interesting, severe. It had all the makings of a good novel. Rick, tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, I'm going to take what you say, and what you're saying, brought two things to my mind immediately. First off, JP Morgan, back in JP Morgan, before JP Morgan Chase days, JP Morgan had a division called Risk Metrics, which, was a little bit of a residue of Bankers Trust, which most people have now totally forgotten about. But as risk people, particularly in the financial sector, we all owe a huge debt of gratitude for our careers to Bankers Trust and then JP Morgan Risk Metrics. And JP Morgan had a list of, I think it was 10 or a dozen risk management rules. And one was a spin on that is far better to be approximately right than precisely wrong. Okay? But, in the book Super Influencers or Super Forecasters, sorry, I got that wrong, by Philip Tetlock and Dan Gardner. Philip Tetlock's work shows that the more precise you are in your prediction and the more color you add to your prediction and the more professional you sound in making your prediction, two things come out of that. One, people are far more likely to believe you and find you credible. But the second fact that comes out of that is it's more likely that you are precisely wrong. And the best predictors are those that say, well, this may happen. And in fairness, the Citrini Research report did say, look, this is not a prediction. This is just painting a scenario. So I think that we have to give them full credit for that. But that's not how the market took it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? And, as someone who does a fair bit of media, I'm kind of brought in as the fool after the experts. Okay? Because one, I sure as heck don't look like typical expert, and normally I have my bow tie on. So I even, that's the only thing that makes me look like an old fuddy-duddy professor. But I try to give the nuance, and people kind of nod. Yeah, okay. Well, we heard from the nutcase, but at least we had the combed expert on to tell us what's really going to happen. And more often than not, I'm interviewed 6 months later. Yeah, in broad strokes, you kind of had it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's a huge amount of marketing that goes into this. Okay. And I think that the people in the know, like the more casual, you and I chatting here, and realize the value in the more casual. But for whatever reason, we want the hyper packaged, the hyper polished, media ready version with all the makeup, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily make it better.
Yeah, exactly. And the reaction was so fast. It's hard to believe that investors had really taken it in, mulled it over, critiqued it, thought of other viewpoints. I mean, it was trigger happy, I
But
would say.
here's one other point to think about. With
Yeah.
all the articles that have been written, if you just trained your AI agent on articles from the last, let's say, 6 months, could have it not have written that article?
Yeah.
Actually, let's put it another way. Could it not have written that article? In other words, if you asked an AI agent, write me an article about how AI is going to affect the economy and the workforce, it almost certainly would have produced something that would have looked very similar
Yeah.
to the Citrini Research report. And again, I'm not putting down the Citrini Research report. I'm not for a second arguing that they did it. What I'm trying to argue is why this? Why
Yeah.
this report amongst all the others that
Yeah.
admittedly have argued for doom or for gloom, or sorry,
Yeah.
doom or for nirvana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I can't fault your point there. I think AI could have written this. It could have got the sequence of events. It could have got the severity, the sectors. But Rick, you sometimes talk about something interesting. I always forget your exact words.
No
Um,
one wants to remember my exact words because they're never grammatically correct to begin with.
what is your expression on waves versus let me say it
Just
in
when
my
you think
words.
it's a trend, you find out that it's a cycle.
Yeah, along those lines. I wonder if Citrini timed it right. Maybe not on purpose, but sometimes things are just at a tipping point. People are ready
Yeah.
to just to be, for that last little push to hit sell. And, things are built up and hey, somebody's got to be the last domino. And
Look,
just
I think that we can pull together a lot of things. Like, for example, your demographics. What we
mhm,
have is we have and again, you know more about this, but basically we have a lot of older people,
yeah,
particularly in the developed countries. Okay.
yeah,
In the undeveloped countries, it's the exact opposite. Although, again, they're getting older as well. These older people are either in retirement, close to retirement, or at the later stages of retirement, and they've got a boatload of money and they're figuring out what to do with it on a day-to-day basis.
yeah,
Every era says that this is the era of maximum VUCA, albeit even though VUCA is a term that's only about 20 years old, but every era had its own version of this is peak VUCA. But
yeah,
we actually are in peak VUCA, and things move a lot faster now for a variety of ways. By the way, VUCA, remember, C is complexity. Complexity, as in my definition of complexity, not the layperson's definition of complexity. And so you're right. I think that uh, the markets, the risk markets in particular, have so many arrows coming at them on a given day. They're almost looking for something that's not going to affect them this afternoon, but might affect them even 6 months down the road, which, of
yeah,
course, the Citrini report um, is. It's 6 to 18 months down the road.
yeah,
And, we got, you know, stuff going to various potential uh, war zones. We've got, what is it, 10%, 15%, 40%? Who knows what, the orange hair is going to do this today?
yeah,
Uh, we've got GDP statistics that everyone knows is very, very, very difficult to interpret because of how the economy is going.
Yeah, lots of scary
And
looking budgets have come out in the past week or so. A lot of
yeah,
red ink
yeah,
that,
yeah.
like you
And
say, yeah,
so something like this, it's almost like uh, 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 the Jersey Shore is coming on TV. So let's watch that instead of the news.
yeah, yeah.
And again, the Citrini Report, I do not want to equate with the Jersey Shore TV show. By the way, if you haven't seen it, you got to see it, and you'll fear for the future of America. But anyhow, oh boy, am I going to get angry letters on that one? But anyhow,
Yeah.
everyone under the age of 30 is going to hate me. But you know what the heck? I'm a university
Hey.
professor teaching finance, so I'm used to that. Uh, but it says something. I think it says something about the fragility of the world. We've got a lot of people who the people who have the money are trying to make it last through the retirement. We've got the second generation wondering how much is going to be left for them. You know, obviously in North America, I'm going through this with my own offspring. You know, how are we going to be able to afford a house, uh,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, look at the
And
gold and Bitcoin prices.
because of our news cycle getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, uh, you know, the reality is this story is already old news.
Yeah, that's true. That's
But
true.
I think the lesson that we want to leave, if we want to leave a lesson, is look for what it's going to be next week. Because next week there's going to be something similar to the Citrini report that is going to shake the world. And you have to ask yourself, is this a truly talented uh, piece that we should look to as a
Mm.
model, or is it Kim Kardashian that is famous for being famous,
Yeah,
viral for being viral?
yeah. And what are other people going to do about it, right? Because that's also, I mean, we
Yeah,
had,
the Keynesian beauty contest is still very, very, very much with us.
yeah, exactly. Well, I would say let us know what you think as an audience as well, because obviously Rick and I took different things out of this, which is the beauty of this podcast. Tell us what you think. What did you think about the report? Why did it rattle markets so much? Yeah, maybe if we get some interesting responses, we can chat about it next week.
Sounds like fun.
Cool.
Have a
Cheers,
good
Rick.
one, everyone.
Until next time. Bye.